Decluttering versus organizing. What is the difference? We're going to talk about that today. Hi there, I'm Angela Brown, and this is Ask a House Cleaner. This is a show where you get to ask a house cleaning question, and I get to help you find an answer. Now, if I don't know the answer, I probably know somebody who does. Today, you are in for a real treat. Once upon a time, there was a woman, and she had a very messy house. And in the process of having this messy house, she was very frustrated and overwhelmed. And she decided that she was going to start decluttering and getting rid of some stuff. And she was going to find harmony and balance in her home. So she decided that she was going to document the process as she went so she could see where she'd been. So she pulled out the notepad and paper and started writing notes. And her notes turned into a blog. Then she said, well, wouldn't it be great if I caught this before and after on camera? So she pulled out the camera and she started making these little home videos. And the next thing you know, it turned into a YouTube show. And her blog turned into a book. And the next thing you know, she's an international sensation in the world of decluttering and organizing. I'm so excited to have on our show today, back by popular demand, the amazing, the one and only Dana K. White.
Hi, I'm Dana K. White, and I am the author of Decluttering at the Speed of Life and How to Manage Your Home Without Losing Your Mind. Those are my two books. And I'm also a blogger and podcaster at A Slob Comes Clean.com.
Well, I'm so glad that you joined us today. I've been a fan of yours for a very long time. Been following you around the internet, all your YouTube shows, your podcasts, your books. I mean, you're everywhere. And I'm super excited that you're joining us today because I understand that you're going to be sharing with us the difference between decluttering and organizing.
Yes, there is a huge difference between the two. So a little bit of my background that I shared last time I was on. Is, I was overwhelmed in my own home. And this was 10 years ago when I started A Slob Comes Clean. And, when I was overwhelmed in my home, I would look around at the disaster that it was. And the phrase that would go through my head all the time was, I've got to get organized. One of these days, I'm going to be organized. I have to get organized. This just does not work for me. That was just the natural assumption that that was the solution to my problems. Well, when I started A Slob Comes Clean anonymously as a practice blog out of total desperation in my home, I felt like I was kind of failing a little bit because, well, I knew I was failing, but I was in such a desperate place that I said to myself, I can't even get organized. I'm so overwhelmed. I can't even get organized. I'm just going to declutter. And so I started decluttering. And what I realized over time was, that was actually what I needed to be doing in the first place. And I realized what I hadn't realized before, which is that it's not just this big overall thing of organizing, but that decluttering and organizing are two completely separate things. And by just having this idea in my head that I've got to get organized, I was overwhelmed before I even got started because organizing is problem solving. Problem solving is overwhelming. And the tendency, especially for the person who's like me, that this is not natural for, is when we say, this is the day I'm going to get organized, we start out by sitting down with a piece of paper and making a plan. Or we start out by heading to the store and walking up and down the organizing aisle. That is the mentality there because you're thinking, I'm going to solve this problem. I'm going to be like all these other people who have organized homes. And when I just decluttered, which is simply getting stuff out of my house that doesn't need to be there, I actually started making progress. Like there's nothing to do before you start decluttering. You can start immediately. There's no planning. There's no figuring out a problem. You just go ahead and start decluttering. And so like when I speak, I will tell people, I'm giving you permission to not get organized. People are like, what? I'm like, but because it's such a mental hang up. And if you can separate those two things out and say, we're not going to worry about getting organized. We're just going to declutter. It allows you to really start diving in there and making that progress that you need to make. And the reality is that over time, I've realized decluttering is exactly what I need to be doing because through just decluttering, not organizing, I ended up achieving what I had always wanted to achieve from what I thought of as organizing. So I wanted a home where it didn't look like an explosion had happened. Well, by getting stuff out of my house that didn't need to be there, almost everything has a home. And so it doesn't look like an explosion happened. So I wanted to be able to find the things that I wanted to find when I wanted to find them. Well, through my decluttering process, I established the homes that are the most logical homes in my house. And I can find things. But that's just through decluttering. It's not through organizing. And so my house looked more organized, it felt more organized, it functioned more organized, but just through decluttering. And so separating those two things out. Now, obviously, you can say that, okay, well, decluttering is the first step to organizing. But for the overwhelmed person, it's very important to just separate those out and say, you know what, just declutter. Just declutter. I'm giving you permission to just declutter. And it's also really helpful too when you are assisting someone else through this process to understand that they may not realize those are two separate things. That may be obvious to you as the person who wants to help someone else, but to the person who's just overwhelmed in their home, they may not realize that. And so just saying, just declutter, that's all we're going to do. First, that helps you. And through that process is when I understood the container concept, which is what I call this light bulb moment that I had of realizing there are limits. That a container, the purpose of it is not to hold stuff, it's to limit how much stuff I can have. And I did not understand that. I don't see limits, that's not how my brain works. And so through that process, I realized, okay, that's how it is that all these organized people are having organized homes with these cute little containers as they're using them correctly. But I only realized that through decluttering. Does that make sense?
Yes. And I love the compartmentalization that you've brought to our attention, that organization is organizing stuff that you have, and decluttering is letting go of that stuff, which then does create an open space so that you can later organize or what have you. But just to get rid of some of that stuff sometimes is maybe all you need.
When you're talking about someone who is not just sort of cluttered, but like has a space that is not able to function, like even if it's just a junk drawer, but that junk drawer is so full that they have no idea what's in the bottom of it. They only see that top little layer there. Just organizing that drawer, not really going to do anything to actually help them. But if they get out all the stuff that they don't need, then all of a sudden they can see everything that's in there. That's the goal of it being organized, right? They can get to it without having to move 5 different things before they get to it. So it's that same, it achieves the purpose, and it's not just a temporary solution. I'm a big fan of just decluttering. Just keep on going, decluttering, and then live with it for a while. And after you've lived with it for a while, you're going to say, what would make this space even easier to maintain is a little basket right here. But don't worry about that now. Just go ahead and declutter now.
Well, and I love the concept of decluttering because we live in a society where more is better. And you go to the store and they'll give you 2 for the price of 1, or if you buy 1, get 1 half off. And we have this tendency to just keep hoarding and buying more things and bringing more stuff home when we really don't need it. And I've seen organized homes where you open up a drawer and there are so many things that are packed in there that when you pull out one, it pulls them all out. And now they're all uncluttered again. I mean, they're all just all over the place because they didn't declutter first and they just organized all the junk that they had. Most of it is stuff they're not even using.
Well, and something to realize with that right there is that we all have a unique clutter threshold. So there are people who are able to have a lot of stuff in all these neat little compartments and maintain that. So like my mother is one of those people, like she can pack it all in all these neat little logical ways. When she needs something, she moves the things she needs, she gets it out, she puts them back, and it goes right back to staying organized. She has a very high clutter threshold. She can have a lot of stuff and keep it under control. I inherited this thought process that I needed to have a lot of stuff, but I have a very low clutter threshold. I cannot do that. When I need something, I go, oh my goodness, I need it. And I grab it, and then it's just a big pile, like you were saying. So it really depends on the person. And that's another thing, when you help someone, you have to help them declutter down to their clutter threshold. So it doesn't matter how you would function with that space. It's how they're going to function with that space.
And that's also an interesting point that you bring up. I remember my grandma, my mom's mom, had lots of kids, but she had lots of stuff. And the whole entire time that I knew my grandma, she was always moving stuff around so she could get to the other stuff. And as long as I knew her, it was moving boxes and bins and stuff. And as a kid, I looked at her and I was like, Grandma, that's a lot of stuff. Do you need all the stuff? And then why are you spending all of your time moving it around so you can get to the other stuff? I mean, way, 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 way too much stuff that she could function properly. And I just remember thinking as a kid, what a colossal waste of time and how exhausting that would be just to to try to maintain whatever her thresholds were.
Right. And that's her though. So it's like however she can function in her home. The tipping point is when you are frustrated with your own home, so even though I can't do that, if she can handle it, that's fine. I define clutter as anything that consistently gets out of control in my own home. So as long as I can maintain a space, okay. But if it's consistently getting out of control, that's when I have to say, I have too much stuff in that space. I've got to declutter it.
Quick question before we go. How do you deal with, let's say somebody is super cluttered in a house and somebody is not, and they would like to declutter the other people in the house? How do you deal with that?
Well, that's its own book. No, that's a lot to answer in a couple of minutes, but no, that's a real issue. That is a major issue that I talk a lot about. And basically it comes down to this. My advice is declutter your own stuff and neutral stuff first. Okay, that's what I did in my home. I was focused on myself and because I hadn't even told my husband yet what I was doing. And because I did that, our home improved greatly just from me focusing on my own stuff and neutral stuff. And my family started to experience what it was like to live with less stuff. And so life was easier. Like you were saying, it's easier when you don't have to move a bunch of stuff all the time. And that changed their perspective on clutter. And eventually they started to declutter as well. And I can't ever guarantee that for anyone, but I hear from women all the time. And it's usually women asking this question. Sometimes it's men, but who have had the same experiences. I didn't think it would happen, but I just focused on my own stuff, focused on neutral stuff. And eventually, they started to. Another thing too, and I briefly mentioned the container concept, but that right there is the number one best way to help other people declutter. And that's to say, hey, because a container is not just a basket. It's any defined space in your home, a shelf, a cabinet, a closet, anything like that. So to say, hey, here's a space for you to keep your 1980s memorabilia that you loved from high school. That was my own personal example from my husband. But, here's a space for that. Well, that makes him feel special, right? Because he's like, oh, she's honoring the fact that I actually like this stuff that I know she doesn't like, And so here's a space for that. And then you just casually mention, put your favorite stuff in there first, and whatever doesn't fit, well, then we'll, have to get rid of that. And it's amazing how when you view a container that way, and I'm gonna have to explain the container concept to him, just to say, put your favorite stuff in first, it naturally sorts out and it naturally shows other people the limit of the space that you have. And then it's not a power struggle between what I think he should keep and what he wants to keep. That has nothing to do with things. It's like, you keep whatever you want to keep in this space that you have for that. And that allows him to make his decisions. And so it's the container deciding how much he can keep, not me telling him how much he should keep.
This is so helpful. Thank you so much for sharing this with us today. And please tell our listeners where they can go to learn more about you, to find your books, your podcast, your YouTube show, your courses, all the stuff that you offer.
It is all at aslobcomesclean.com. So, thanks.
Alrighty, and that was Dana K. White from A Slob Comes Clean. I am super excited that she joined us today because I always learn so much interesting stuff from her. And today she gave us permission not to organize, not to clean, but to declutter, to get rid of all that stuff that we have in our houses that we don't need, don't want, don't use, and are okay to let go. So thank you, Dana, so much. I have a feeling there are a lot of us that are going to be pulling out our pens and papers and documenting our process as we let go of those things we no longer need. All right, if you found this helpful, please pass it on to a friend. If we've earned your subscription, please subscribe. And until we meet again, leave the world a cleaner place than when you found it.